I appreciate many things about you. And two things that I really thought about when preparing for this. One is the obvious. You produce an enormous amount of content. You do, I counted actually, you've done 60 episodes in a month. That's 2 per day, if counting Saturday and Sunday. How do you do it? How do you create so much? It's because it's hard to keep up with everything.
It's part of my life now, so I enjoy doing it, first of all. But I try to stay within reason, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I try to only do one stream rather than two. And sometimes my schedule is a little bit off on the weekends. But overall, I like doing what I'm doing. And second of all, being a content creator, there's a lot of competition. You can't give up. So if you want to stay and still continue to, you know, uh, have your lead or compete with other big boys, right? You have to keep going. So part of that just discipline. You just knowing that you have to keep creating, even though some people maybe they're more relaxed or they take more vacations and they don't feel like streaming or putting out videos, right? While others are doing that, you can push forward and kind of retain not only your audience but also grab other people's audience as well. So it's kind of a strategy there too.
Mm. It's very, very impressive. And that second point that I really thought about is that, which I think will be very important in this cycle of the market. Maybe it wasn't really such a big thing before, but you stay positive. And we who have been a few of these cycles, we know what's going to happen. Everyone is very on, peak euphoria, everyone is very excited. Then it starts dumping. Then people don't quit at that point. Most of don't quit yet because it's still exciting. Is it going up? Is it going down? But then often comes like a boring period where it's
Mhm.
down and flat and boring and not much happens. And that's when a lot of people disappear. And then they're not around to see the rise that will come, because the one thing that we can be sure about is that it will keep going up and down. That's not going anywhere. That's the only thing we can be sure about. And then sadly a lot of people won't be around to catch it. They will jump on again when it's the next euphoria top instead. And I think that really staying in the game is really the most important part, and staying positive and not giving up is key to that. And I really appreciate that mindset that you have, because you do have that. You do have a positive mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, I do for a couple reasons. One, I mentioned because I have been through a couple of these cycles. I mean, the biggest one I missed, after I got out of 2014, when things started coming down, right? I realized that was a mistake.
Mm.
But also, I think part of the journey is to actually truly understand what Bitcoin is about. It's not, yes, I think most people get in to make money. But I mean, clearly, right now, if you're paying attention, and this is what I do, I cover a lot of the macro stuff that we're facing right now. If you're paying attention, all the stuff with governments, the banks, the Federal Reserve, all these guys that are really irresponsible with what they have done in the past, and that's why we're facing the repercussions of high inflation right now. If you're paying attention, well, people want something better, right? So if you truly understand that Bitcoin does not inflate, like based on a push of a button, based on what someone says, you can't just print $4 trillion worth of Bitcoin out of thin air, right? Not like the Federal Reserve in the US. There's no quantitative tightening or easing and all this stuff that you hear about every day. Bitcoin solves that. There's a set supply governed by code, right? We have a halving event, which governs the inflation rate, which decreases every 4 years, right? And that's it. It's the scarcest asset we have that's controlled by the people. It's non-sovereign. There's no country that owns it, right? And if you understand these things, and the fact that this network is the most secure network we have today, and anyone can instantaneously, using the Lightning Network, I could send you and you could send me Bitcoin like within seconds, right? Costs us nothing really to do,
Yeah,
and no one can stop that. I mean, if people understand these things about Bitcoin, then they're in it for life. They're going to stay positive.
absolutely.
That's
And I
why
mean,
it, well,
everyone will say like, but it has no value. It's just a Ponzi. It's just for speculation and so on. That's people who have never actually done anything on the internet. Anyone who go on the internet and try to, sell whatever on the internet, they immediately faced with the problem that you need to collect the money to charge for your product. And then comes the next problem. And I mean, the only person who actually did something before Bitcoin was Elon Musk. And it was like 22 years ago or something with PayPal. And if you go on the website today, it looks the same as it did 20 years ago. It looks identical. It hasn't changed one bit. And still, before Bitcoin, or excluding Bitcoin, that's still the best thing we have. And it's from 20 years ago. And it costs like 10%. If living in Sweden here, it costs 10% to collect any payment. I have a course, right? And then people can pay with bank transfer. Always problem. Where is the money? They're calling their bank. I'm calling my bank. No one can find the money. Or it's PayPal. Then it costs 10%, which is a super expensive service because there's exchange rates and there's fees and it costs 10%. It's a lot of money. Or it's Bitcoin then. Then it arrives immediately, never any confusion if someone has paid or not. It costs almost nothing, and it's like money on the internet. And of course it's useful. And people who say that it's not, they've never actually tried doing anything. They don't know what they're talking about. Of course it's useful. I mean, global money on the internet, of course that has value. And I am certain that this is gonna succeed because as you guys know, if you're not new on the channel, I was early in the internet revolution. I was part of the telecom revolution, and I've never been so sure as this time, the third time around, that blockchain and Bitcoin and crypto is going to change everything because it is like a factor 1,000 times more efficient. And then technology wins in the end if it has that kind of advantage. And then I thought to say something else also, because we talked a little bit before when preparing for this, because you have just hodl it, right? Printed on your screen. We can't exactly see it, but we can see a little bit of the side there. It says just hodl it.
And I have another camera view
exactly
that normally when I stream I could do two cameras, but right now I can't.
That's why people need to go on your channel and subscribe to you later so they can see the full view. So anyway, while I'm a trend trader, and I thought of this, I said this yesterday to another friend also, that when I was a child, I played table tennis because we had a Swedish table tennis player that was very popular, and I was a backhand player. So I played like this. My friend was predominantly a forehand player. So he played like this. And we were always arguing which one is the best, backhand player or forehand player. And that doesn't take away from our friendship, or it doesn't take away from our love for table tennis. It's fun to have a little bit different perspective, and then we can discuss, and maybe we both learned something. Maybe I became a better forehand player as a result, and he became a better backhand player because we took that. And I think that that's really the perspective that I want to take here. I'm here to make new friends, and then we can, we can discuss the details. But as long as we share the values and share the big picture, which is really that this industry is doing something good. That's the way that I see it. And yeah, it is really my perspective on this. So it's good we have a little bit different perspectives. And I also hold a position. So I don't ever want to wake up and have no Bitcoin in my account. That would be a very, very sad day. So that will never happen. So let's talk about the price action. What do you think? You have a lot of check on the interest rate statistics, and what's your take?
Well, obviously, and I think you've covered this too. I think all eyes are right now on the DXY, the strength of the dollar, And while the strength of the dollar is going up in this unprecedented time, it really shouldn't be because of how much was printed in the US over the last 2.5 years. But the reality is that other countries, their economic situation is just not as good as the US. And that's why the fiat currencies from a lot of these other countries are doing poorly against the dollar. And because of that, the dollar is going up. DXY continues to go up. And traditionally speaking, when the DXY goes up, everything falls. Especially risk-on assets like tech stocks, for example, they fall, and Bitcoin and crypto traditionally fall when the DXY is going up. So unfortunately, that's the situation we're in right now. Seems like there's a lot of money just flowing into the dollar because it's like the surest play right now. Even historically speaking, gold should be going up right now. Gold traditionally is where investors they want to get off risk on assets, they go risk off assets. They would go gold, but gold has been going down too. So that kind of tells you something. The surest play right now, I think most people they're saying right now is the dollar, and they're putting their money into the dollar. But we know that won't last. We know that's temporary right now because a lot of the macro conditions going on that won't last, but currently, near term, that's what's happening.
Oh, absolutely. I'm showing the DXY chart here, and as everyone can see, I think you cannot see it, George, but it's on the stream. So um, it's clear that at this point there is no reversal in the DXY chart. Of course, if we want Bitcoin to go up, we hope for a reversal, and of course it could reverse any time, but it hasn't really yet. This is an intact parabola that continues upwards, and yeah, anyone's guess is as good as mine when this will turn, because it really hasn't turned yet. And I learned this quite recently, that when there is the emergency phase, like when there is markets are really dumping, then gold traditionally has actually dumped also, because people need to rebalance their portfolio. If all their stocks crash, for example, maybe they get margin calls, or they have like a fund where they have to have a certain balance, then they have to go and sell gold as well, even if they like gold and they think that it will go up over time. In the short term, everything goes down, all the assets, irrespective, and gold too. But then when we get out of the emergency room and there's kind of a more stable situation, that could really be the time when gold could show its strength, because it is really a hedge against the dollar, or has acted like that. And perhaps that could be the time when Bitcoin start correlating more against dollar as digital gold. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's what Peter Schiff has been saying for 10 plus years. I mean, he was claiming that gold was going to go to 5,000 like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And obviously, it still hasn't. I agree with you. When there's like a huge crash, like if Dow for the US, for example, crashes 3,000 points, you'll see everything sell off. Gold will sell off. But if you're looking at a longer period, let's say you look at the last 8 months, right? While the Dow, S&P, and Nasdaq, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking like primarily for US markets, but if you're looking at the last 8 months, 9 months since the 2022, I mean, gold still has been going down. So
yeah,
even though it's a prolonged period, it's just a weird thing. Like I've been saying this on my show, the recession that we're seeing right now in the US, and we are in a technical recession because 2 straight GDP quarters have been down. Um, this recession we're in is actually caused by the Fed. The Fed wants us to be in recession because that's the only way they know how to tame inflation at this point. They don't know how else to battle inflation. So they're like, we have to do something. We're
yeah.
going to curb demand. So that's why the rates are going up. So this is a Fed-induced recession, and it's unlike any other recessions we had before. So that's why it's just a strange period overall. That's my overall take.
It is, and I come from a technology background, so I'm not an economist, and I try to stick to what I know. But I spoke to a professor in macroeconomics, and she said that this situation that we have now with this kind of demand-driven price hikes and exactly what we're seeing now, it is exactly like you said, it's a little different from many previous situations. So who knows what will happen? She said there isn't really a blueprint for this because it's different from previous instances. So absolutely. And let's move on. So if we look at the more short-term price action, what do you see here? Do you see chance for recovery short-term, or do you think that it's a key day coming up with the announcement, Fed rate announcement?
Yeah, I mean, the Fed announcement will really determine whether or not we get a good rally or we don't, because tomorrow when Powell does announce the new Fed fund rate and how much it's going up by, right, it will affect markets. If it's in line with expectation, expect that we have this. It seems like every month we have this weight that's like holding Bitcoin and market down, even though we could fluctuate a little bit. But overall, it's just giant weight that's on top of Bitcoin's shoulders right now. And unfortunately, I think it's because a lot of institutions that got into this space, they're 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 in both, basically. They're in equities, they may be in bonds, they may be in dollars, but they're also in Bitcoin. And when they get scared, they just kind of sell off everything. That's how I see it. That's why we have this correlation. So they will react. They will react to what gets announced tomorrow. And if it's in line with the expectation, then the weight disappears, and then it gives a chance for Bitcoin to rally afterwards. I think if it's really bad, it will bring the markets down more. So that's kind of, I see it short term. Tomorrow will be a big determining day.
Absolutely. I think so too. And I mean, Bitcoin is at the at the critical point here, because we're basically almost sitting at support. And should this support break here at 18,600, it's kind of ugly in the Bitcoin to US dollar chart, because we get a head and shoulders formation, which is not happy life. But what was positive, I think, was the strong reaction yesterday of this support. So if we get the positive announcement tomorrow and this rallies up, it could put in a strong bottom. So that's really what we're hoping to see. And should this break down, I think further downside is probably in the books, because then we form a quite ugly pattern. That's my take. But at the same time, I mean, I'm pretty excited about the bull market, because good things will happen. One thing is that we have a chance to get in at lower levels. And I mean, the point when the last bull capitulates, that's the bottom, because then there is no one else to sell. And what do you think in scenarios at all? Do you have like scenarios? What happens if we go to 13K or 10K, or if we reverse here? Do you think like that, what I'm going to do in different situations?
No, for me, like you said, I'm going to be sticking with Bitcoin forever.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, if we fall to 13K, 12K, 10K, we fall to 3K, let's just say, we go back to 3,000. I'm just going to be DCing more. It's something that I'm not going to be giving up on. And that's the difference between a true investor and holder versus anyone else that's jumping in.
Yeah.
That's really just trying to trade. So I'm not a trader. I've said that. I've learned my lessons. I've calculated some of the times I had traded, and I'm like, I should have just held on, done nothing. I should have just hodled. So that's what I plan on doing. But different people have different perspectives on that.
Absolutely, and I love that. And let's see what happens. Whatever it is, you and I, we're going to be here, and we're because Bitcoin and blockchain is going to make it. I am certain of it because it has fundamentally useful. If we look a little bit more at the bigger picture, because you said something important that the Fed has kind of caused this situation, and I also feel very strongly that the governments around the world have really shown a lot of mismanagement the past couple of years with the handling of the whole pandemic response, with the lockdowns and all that stuff. And I think that a lot of people are looking for alternatives. That's at least what I hear, my friends and so on, even if they're not into Bitcoin, they feel an increased concern. Like, do the government know what they are doing? It seems like they didn't, do so well around the world. And first the response, now the economy. Here in Europe, we have the electricity crisis, the energy crisis. And I made a video on that and really studied it. I got really deep into that. And the narrative here in Europe is that it's Putin's fault. He switched off one pipe, and that's the problem. Putin's fault, Putin bad. And no doubt, that's true. He switched off a pipe, and he's bad for a lot of reasons. But there's also the fact that they kind of switched off the old systems before the new ones are ready. And then the balance got very delicate. And then when there's like a small problems, it turns into a giant catastrophe here. And talking about, load shedding, which is typically otherwise only been in developing countries. Europe has had a very stable electricity grid and low prices. Suddenly there's talks about 10 times increase in prices and switching off the electricity grid. And which will lead to other economical catastrophe also. People like us here are working digitally. It doesn't matter so much. We have the lights and, electricity for the lamp, but that's it. But there's a lot of businesses that are very dependent on the electricity price. So they will go from maybe 10% profitable if they operate at the 10% profit margin to maybe bankrupt as a result, which will cause further damage to the economy. Then add the inflation, the rate hikes, and it's really not looking great for the economy. And this is really the perspective I see here in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little research on the CPI. I think you guys call it CPI-F for Sweden. It went up from 8 to 9% from July to August, and primarily it's because energy prices skyrocketed by 29%.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something that everyone is facing, but more so in Europe than, let's say, in the US, even though we do have higher energy prices and it's starting to come down. But Europe, because of the war, because some countries' dependence on natural gas and oil from Russia, it's difficult. Like, what are you going to do if you've been relying on that Nord Stream pipeline to pump all this gas and all of a sudden it's off? Like, how are you going to make up for it all of a sudden, right? It's a tough situation. So I do think that, energy prices going up, and then of course we still have supply chain issues. A lot of stuff are produced in China and they're not being shipped, they're not being produced, they're not being offloaded. These two things will continue to persist into 2023, and they're going to kind of artificially keep inflation high, on top of all the mismanagement and the printing that the governments did. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation, to say the least.
Yeah. I saw something that really stuck with me. Now it's maybe 2 years ago or something, but Vitalik has this yearly blog, and he wrote, I think 2 years ago, that young people find that gold is lame, and meaning that Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum is a better choice, or Bitcoin at least, than a digital gold. And I think that that's very true. I think there could be a generation shift here where the kind of dropping confidence for the old systems faced with all this mismanagement, and gold could be kind of included in that, and then kind of comes a better alternative with the younger generation. And I saw some statistics that there's a huge number, especially in the US, where young millennials with high income is something like 65% who own crypto, which is huge, much, much higher than in Sweden or in Europe. Do you think there is a generation gap? Is this, not really going to change until younger, more forward-thinking people come into power? Because it's easy to see that kind of the older generation holding back a lot with regulation, trying to protect the old system and stop the innovation, stop crypto, and protect the legacy, so to say. Do you see that?
Yeah, I think age has a lot to do with it. Obviously, millennials, they're all digital. Pretty soon, kids around. Like every generation is changing, right? And there's no, I just, I can't fathom any way that like something physical, like gold, buying physical gold actually comes back. Like I know it's used in a lot of things, jewelry, of course, it's never gonna go away.
Yeah.
Chips, medical supplies, invest just will see that crowd. So I think the age gap plays a big part into it, and yeah, and the people that are setting the rules, primarily they're still older, but as they get replaced with more forward-thinking younger generation of people that have grown up with digital currencies, with digital wallets, with blockchain and everything else that comes with it, well, then they're going to be more pro Bitcoin and crypto overall, right? And over time, we'll see that.
Yeah. We had a short outage here, but we got the message. So the regulation is also ramping up. We see SEC that you covered that. If you haven't watched it, you should go check. It's your latest stream, right? Where you talk about SEC claiming jurisdiction over everything that happens on Ethereum network, which is, I saw it also on Twitter yesterday and I choked on my Swedish coffee here. It was really an unprecedented move to say that because the nodes are in the US, everything that happens on Ethereum network, even if the customers and the businesses are somewhere else, is still jurisdiction of the SEC.
Yeah. I like to poke fun of Gary Gensler a lot, but he's really reaching now. He's really getting out of control. This last declaration it's unfounded and it doesn't even make a whole lot of sense. He's claiming that because he was going after Sparkster, which is I guess a fraudulent company that had ICO in 2018, but I guess the only way they were able to go after them was to say that, well, they conducted, the ICO and they collect a lot of money over the Ethereum network. And since 40 something percent of the network resides in the US, well, that gives us jurisdiction.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not even, it wasn't even, you showed the statistics, right? It's not even 50% of the nodes. It's like 46
right.
or something, right? But it's still, since it's more
It
than in the other
doesn't
countries, it still belongs to the US then.
Right. Somehow, just because 46% of the traffic or the nodes is in the US, somehow that just gives the US the authority to say, okay, it's ours. Ethereum belongs to us and we get to mandate whatever we want. And on top of that, the SEC is declaring, well, Ethereum is a security, so we get to control it. Right. So he's making a lot of assumptions and jumping through a lot of hoops, but no one is challenging him right now, at least not yet. So we'll
Yeah.
see if anyone comes up to challenge that.
What do you think will happen with the regulation? Is this going to go all crazy and they're going to, deem all the coins except Bitcoin will be securities and they cannot be traded anymore, and you cannot do any new projects because then it's like a stock and everyone need to go and register, like if you're doing a stock, an IPO or something like that, which will make it very difficult to do any innovation? Or do you think it will, become more, in the US, will it become more pro-innovation and so on? US did very well to promote the internet innovation by creating regulation that was favorable, and that gave birth to the entire Silicon Valley and all the big companies in the US, which are all tech companies now. And which way do you think it will go with all your experience?
I think living through the dot-com bubble, there will be a lot that will get shut down.
Yeah.
Not even just due to regulation, just due to their own mismanagement. Years, but the ones that do survive, and I do think they will survive, a lot of them will survive, and they'll become the next powerhouses, like the internet, the giant internet companies. But regulations will, they will come for sure. And even if a lot of these bigger projects are deemed securities, they're not going to go away. Like, for example, I'm going to use Ripple. Their current lawsuit with the SEC, even if they lose, even if they are declared security, doesn't necessarily mean they just close down shop and that's it. It just means that they have to comply with SEC rules and regulations and their auditing and all the stuff that they want. I mean, think about all the stocks that's traded out there are securities. They're still operating, but it's just a lot of hassle to go through all the hoops that the SEC wants you to go through, right? And no project wants to go through that. The scrutiny of that is just, it's too much for most projects, to be honest. They don't have the manpower or the money or the time to do so.
Yeah.
So I think there will be more regulations, but I think not everyone is against crypto. We have a few senators in the U.S. that's very pro crypto, so I think there'll be a lot of infighting. I think both sides will be fighting it out. Obviously, there's a lot of people in the crypto space that are kind of like for no regulations at all, right? Everything should be dictated by a free market. No one should be regulating anything. But we do see some cases where there's a lot of projects that go under, rug pulls and stuff like that. So I think some regulations are good and necessary, but hopefully we find that good balance between both, right? Where it's not.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think if we can get good regulation, that's really what's needed to take this further, because the uncertainty and unclarity is very damaging. And looking at the years that have been, it has been very unclear, and maybe it's a little clearer now, but not much. If asking the regulators straight up, which of the 10 coins, top 10 coins or top 20 coins are securities and which are not, it's we won't get an answer. We won't get a straight answer because it's not clear yet. And that it's been even unclear before. And what happens when it's unclear is that there's business risk. And when there's business risk, a lot of big companies don't want to touch it. We can see it even with, say, game companies, where you would feel that would be such an obvious place to introduce cryptocurrencies or NFTs or something. They're worried. The whole existing traditional businesses, they're worried. Even tech companies are worried. Banks are super worried. No one really dares to touch it until this gets a little bit clearer. And here in Europe, perhaps that is even more clear than in the US. I mean, I have some friend, his girlfriend got a bank account closed because bought $100 worth of Bitcoin, because the bank said that we don't want to do business with someone who is into cryptocurrencies, because as everyone knows, that's only criminals and crooks who do that. And
Right.
they don't know. I mean, it's unclear what's the situation, and it's kind of not regulated so well, and then they don't know. And I think if going in the US and asking people are a lot more aware. And it's really, I feel quite sad about that actually, because Sweden has often been in the forefront of new technology. We're a tiny country here in the corner of the world where it's too cold and too dark, really. And then we realized from the beginning that we need to think globally. Otherwise, you cannot get anywhere in the business. An American company can do very well if having the American market, but the Swedish company will not, because the country is too small. You have to think the whole world, and that has then fueled many of the big companies like IKEA and H&M and Ericsson and Spotify and Skype and all that stuff. So because thinking globally. So Sweden was very early on the internet and driving the telecom and so on. And now comes the next one, blockchain, and then Sweden is kind of behind, because I think many of the driving factors that were there in the US, like there's a culture of that you should be, in charge, and there's a lot of, distrust maybe with the institutions. Here in Sweden, we like our banks, we trust institutions generally, and so on. So there wasn't really this driving factor, and that has then unfortunately made Sweden fall behind in this technology shift, and we really need to change it. So I think if going out here on the street and asking people, they have no idea. Like if going to a bank or asking any professional, they don't know that Ethereum is worth I think it's 7 times as much as Ericsson, which is a big Swedish company that do the telecom networks. They don't know that Ethereum is like 7 times that. They don't know that blockchain is a big innovation. They don't know that Bitcoin has taken a measurable market share from gold. They don't know. They think that Bitcoin or blockchain and crypto is some small niche mainly used by, for scams. And it's like a tiny thing going on. They don't know how big it is and how big this innovation is. And that's really what we need to educate everyone about, I feel.
That's why we're on YouTube, trying to educate the masses as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And next question here. Do you have favorite projects, chains? What do you think? Ethereum, BNB, Solana, Matic, or do you have strong opinions here, or are you, neutral?
Well, these days, Bitcoin is always a given. You should always hold some Bitcoin. But these days, I tend to just talk about like the bigger caps, right? Like the ones that are still doing well, still executing, still having hackathons and conferences, and still bring a ton of dApps to them, right? Right now, of course, we talked about Ethereum. We don't have to talk about Ethereum, but they are the big dog, right? But outside of that, I think a lot of people are missing out on like Binance, BNB. Also, you do have Solana, but they have they have some issues they have to work out with their network outages, but I think they'll do fine in the future. You still have Cardano. They're a big contender, obviously. They're having their Vaso hard fork in a couple of days, so we'll see how that goes. But Cardano's up there too. And then you have some of the smaller players that I like, like Polygon, Avalanche, even Near Protocol. VeChain. There's some other like L1s, L2s that I like, and primarily because they host all the dApps. They have all the dApps on top of them, right? So that's more exciting to me that they're the foundations. They're really like the operating system for these future generation of dApps. So those are the ones that I particularly look at these days.
Yeah. What do you think about stable coins? Because one thing, I think the biggest mistake that I've done so far in this industry is I really trusted Celsius. I thought and felt that could be a company that really helps take crypto mainstream. I really believed in the mission and the people, and I had some money there, and that's not looking great. So then after that, I've decided I cannot really trust any company or institution here. I need to really expect the worst. And I really thought a lot about stable coins also, that what could go wrong here, especially if we're kind of in a bear market. For myself, I park some in stable coins. And what do you think about that? Do you think USDT is it gonna make it, or is there a huge bomb ticking there, or USDC, BUSD? What do you think?
Well, to quickly talk about what you thought about Celsius. I think we all been through it. I was lucky I didn't have anything with Celsius, but I made a mistake of getting into Terra, and I
Mm,
thought Terra was a good project. Obviously, it exploded, and they did really bad things. So I think we all go through these mistakes. We make
yeah.
mistakes, but the important thing is to pick ourselves back up.
Mm,
Now, as for stable coins, like Tether had a really iffy start, and it's still kind of iffy. They're trying to make themselves more legit. I think they're hiring like one of the top five accounting firms to kind of go through an audit. But over the years, Tether was created by Ifinix, which is the parent company of Bitfinex. And if you look at Bitfinex's history, man, they came out with tokens left and right just to recoup their own losses. Like Bitfinex had like a major hack, and they came out with some other token, and somehow that wasn't enough. So they came out with Tether, and there's a lot of rumblings whether or not Tether was a true kind of push in 2017 of like pushing Ethereum up and Bitcoin up because of Tether. But then, then like Bitfinex had like 800 million seized by a bank or something. So then they took a 800 million loan from Tether, zero interest. And that's what got them in trouble, the New York district attorney. Right. And then they came out the Leo token, and people didn't know that. Leo
yeah.
token is also created by Bitfinex
Yeah.
to gap that 800 million hold that they borrowed. It's like they have nonstop tokens that they just release, and somehow they find people to buy and hold it. But yeah, Tether is just its history is just really really rough. So I don't trust Tether, but most exchanges still use them. I think it's better to just park your money into something else. I trust USDC because it's created by Circle and Coinbase in the US, but I know uh, it got discredited a lot recently because they supported the US Treasury Department in terms of banning Tornado Cash.
Mm,
So USDC also did that. They ban all these they blacklist all these wallet addresses. So that got a lot of DeFi projects really upset. Like MakerDAO wants to get off of USDC, and many others are thinking about that right now. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, the other big stablecoin is BUSD
yeah.
from Binance, and they're trying to really push that right now.
Mm,
So, I don't know. Stable coins, I think the ones that exist now, like BUSD, USDC, Paxos, the ones that are not algorithm based, that are collateral based, they are either over collateralized or they have one to one, meaning they have cash on reserve and they have audit trails to prove that. But the only one I really don't trust is USDT. And I hope it doesn't go belly up, because if it does, it'll be way
oh yeah.
worse than Celsius or
That would
Voyager
be,
going
oh
under.
my, that would be, that then nothing is safe except Bitcoin. One Bitcoin, is one equal to one Bitcoin. If that happens, that's the only thing that we can say about.
There's a
I have
lot of
one more
they,
question. Then let's take some questions from the audience after that. But I have one more question that I'm really looking forward to ask you, because there's midterm elections in the US. I looked it up.
Mhm.
It's 8th of November. So in yeah, less than 2 months. And politicians, they like to win elections, right? And now everything is down. Do you think there is a chance that they will be like pump the markets, everyone get a little happier, get some more votes, or you think it's not important, this midterm election?
I mean, there's certain things that just happen and there's no real reason for it. And I think before elections, generally speaking, things do pump because of promises made by these politicians, whether or not they're promising the moon or tax cuts or whatever, it gets people excited. But generally speaking, also for US markets rally in November, December. That's why they call it like the Christmas rally or Santa rally. right? So I'm still hopeful that in November, December, we see some kind of rally, little bit at least. I'm hopeful of that, but maybe we don't get it. But I'm hoping that, September so far, it's not great, not horrible either. We're still recovering from our bottom. But hopefully October we could gain a little bit and really see some momentum in November, December. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, statistically over the years, October, November has been a little better than September.
Yeah.
I think, right? So let's take some questions here. Is the SEC going after Cardano? Yeah, what do you think? Do you think they will start with XRP, and then if they win, they will go after all at once, or what's your take on this one?
Here's why I don't think they'll go after Cardano, because Cardano did have ICO, but they had it in Japan, so they didn't have it in the US. So I don't think
But the
SEC could go
nodes,
after them for that.
in the
Yeah.
US.
So actually, Cardano's ICO is pretty hidden. Like it was supposed to be like a small group of investors, and I don't know the relationship, like whether or not IOHK like had something to do with it, but I know that they had ICO in Japan. It was very early on when Cardano was coming out. It was known as like the Ethereum of Asia because they kind of had their roots in Asia and then somehow just completely flipped to the US. I don't know how that
Yeah.
happened, but because of that, I don't think SEC is going to go after them. There's other players that will probably go after that had ICOs in the US though.
How about ETH then? Gensler has been waiting for the merge. ETH is done. Do you think that the move to proof of stake can kind of open exposure, or do you think that's relevant, or it's just a fork?
Yeah, whether it's proof of stake or proof of work, I think it doesn't really matter in SEC's in their eyes. Ethereum did have ICO, so they're going to be looking at that. They're going to target any company that had ICO in the United States, and they're going to consider it as a non-security, as a security offering that was non-registered. So they're probably looking at that already. But here's, I mean, the Ethereum case is difficult for them because they're the agency that deemed Ethereum was a non-security. They deemed it. The prior director said that Ethereum is a commodity.
Yeah.
So the on book right now in the United States, Ethereum is a commodity until Gensler comes out and says no, we're officially declaring a security.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just like he's, people are reading in between the lines what he's saying in interviews and stuff. He didn't say specifically Ethereum is a security. He's just saying Bitcoin is the only non-security, So people are reading in between the lines. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Ripple case because they don't want to lose the Ripple case. Losing the Ripple case would be a huge blow to the SEC. And Gary does not want that to happen.
Yeah. What do you is there a chance that Ripple even wins the case, and if they turn out to not have been a security, then do you think that will have ripple effects?
Here's what I'm thinking, and I could be way off base. I think Ripple is winning, and once they get the evidence and the testimony that they've basically they won. The judges have declared that SEC needs to give the evidence and the testimony from a prior director that states Ethereum is a commodity. So they won that battle, but the SEC is just still not giving that evidence. But when they do, Ripple will be able to use that and defend themselves and say, these are the reasons why we're not a security too, based on the evidence. So I think they have a good shot, a very good shot. But here's the wild card. If Gary really, really does not want to lose it, after they hand that evidence over, then Gary and SEC will officially declare Ethereum as security. So then that evidence, is trash, right? Then Ripple can't use it because the SEC will say, well, everything we just handed over is invalidated because we think it's a security. We know it's a security. So then how is Ripple going to defend themselves afterwards, right? So I think that's the wild card, whether or not Gary will be so desperate to reverse their prior ruling and declare it officially a security.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
Very interesting. Then we have a couple of comments, questions about stable coins. For example, DAI. Why is DAI the best stable coin then? Do you think decentralized, stable coins have a future after Luna and UST, or do you think that it will be audited, regulated stable coins like USDC or BUSD, whoever dominates in the end? I don't know what I think. I'm not completely sure.
I mean, just thinking about what happened to UST, I think governments are going to be scrutinizing non-collateral stable coins a lot more than collateralized stable coins. So something like DAI is like half. It's like hybrid. They peg it to the dollar, backed by USDC and other collaterals. So it's not like really backed one-to-one with cash. And DAI is the one that wants, I mean, from MakerDAO, they want to get rid of USDC, but then Coinbase offered them a sweet deal saying, don't dump USDC, give it to us to hold, and we'll give you interest on it. And that's
Yeah,
what they're doing now. So I don't know, like stable coins like DAI and others that are still algorithmic based or not fully one-to-one backed, I think they're going to feel the heat of the regulators.
yeah. A few more comments here. What's the ETH low? Is now a good time to buy ETH and Sol, or wait for more downside? I can go first. I think that it's a risky point in the market. Trend remains down, but it all comes down to what happens here tomorrow. If you're a gambler, you could hope for a turnaround here, but anyone entering here, it better be with a stop loss. That's my trader answer to that. What do you think, George, as a more long-term hodler here?
I mean, I don't have the chart with me, but you could look at recent lows, and I think, from that you could derive where it could go to. But I'm bullish overall on Ethereum going forward. I think this move to proof of stake is significant, primarily short term, because the ETH issuance have dropped so much. So
Yeah,
now you're getting to a point where it's basically deflationary. It's burning as much as it's being released, and plus you still have a lot of people that are staking that can't unstake right now.
yeah,
All the new staking rewards are also staked, and you can't sell that. So it's basically going through a deflationary time. So short term, I think that's going to be very positive. Long term, this helps them, figure out a scaling solution. So I think
yeah.
it's good.
I'm also positive to Ethereum. I will take the next question. Thanks for the great answer. Will the digital dollar be the next stablecoin, like the central bank digital currency US dollar whenever it comes out? I mean, China has made quite a lot of advancement with their stablecoin. Do you think that will be the next stablecoin?
Well, certainly, if the U.S. comes out of the digital dollar, it'll be used by everyone. They'll basically force it, right? Why would you not use it? But here's the thing: there's still a difference between a government-controlled stablecoin versus a project-controlled stablecoin. Let's just put it that way. A digital dollar from any country, right? I think will be tracked more extensively than anything else that we have seen. So now everything is based on a ledger that they can pinpoint at any given time. It's all visible, it's all transparent, and that is what governments want. that's if you think about it, why do you think China came out with digital yuan so
Yeah.
quickly? It's because they want more visibility into what their citizens are actually using their money for, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a huge difference between, like the U.S. government coming out, or any government coming out with their stable coin versus a privatized one,
Yeah.
just from the tracking perspective. So
Oh, absolutely. Um, got a super chat here, Raven Rebels. I didn't even know I had that. Will the autumn equinox affect BTC? Equinox, is that the English term when the day and night is the same length, right?
Yeah. You know what? There's on TradingView, there's an indicator that you could download that tells you all the equinoxes and the full moons and stuff. Here's the good news about the autumn equinox. If you look at the last 2 years, 2021 and 2020, after the autumn equinox is when Bitcoin skyrocketed. So I'm
I'm
hoping
googling it
history
here.
repeats.
Friday, 23rd of September. So that's in 3 days. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
looking
I'm
good.
hoping that's true. And plus, we talked about the elections coming up, and the last few months of the year. Who knows?
Who
Stranger things
knows?
have happened.
Two more. Let's take two more questions. So we have 2 more minutes. What's your respective worst case scenarios and how have you prepared for that? That's a very good question. You answered it a little bit that you would, just keep DCAing, but do you have like a worst case scenario? And how do you prepare for that?
Not really. I mean, okay. I mean, since 2008, since 2017, the low of 2018, like in December, Bitcoin was 3,000 and Ethereum was below $100. Then you fast forward to March of 2020, Bitcoin fell down to about 3,800, 4,000, and Ethereum fell down to like, again, 80 something dollars, 90 something dollars. So I look at that and put it into perspective. Bitcoin was at 4,000 versus 19,000 now, right? That's many multiples higher. You look at Ethereum, it was at $90 versus 1,300 now, right?
Yeah.
That's more than 10x. So there's no scenario that's going to make me more fearful than that time. Unless Bitcoin falls to $2,000 and Ethereum falls to $50, right? Like there's nothing that I haven't seen. So I'm just going to keep DCAing. I mean, I believe in Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin more than Ethereum, but I believe in Bitcoin so much. If it really fell back down to like $4,000, I'd just like put all my money into it at then,
Yeah.
because that's when you make your wealth. You buy when others are fearful, and at that point, everyone would be fearful.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I have two legs to stand on here. I'm a technology guy. I have had the fortune to create some technology that's used by billions of people today, and the mobile phone systems, the 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, and I love the technology of this, and I feel that it's going to go somewhere. But I'm also a trader, and of course, I would be sad if this industry starts to really struggle. But as a trader, that's a great opportunity, because if it really capitulates and everyone starts saying that giving up and it's dumping to, it was 3,800 something just 2020. That's just a little over 2 years ago. And if it happens again, that would be a great opportunity to buy. And how I prepare for this is to always be prepared, whatever comes. I'm not going to be paralyzed. I'm going to try to make use of that opportunity instead. That is really how to prepare for whatever scenario comes. And rather than trying to think that I know what's going to happen in 1 year in the markets, I don't know. And I know that I don't know. So all right, I have actually one more question, because looking at the comments here, occasionally there's some criticism. I said this, or you said that, or something like that. How do you relate to criticism? How do you deal with criticism? You're a huge channel, and you probably get a bigger share of it than many other people.
Well, I try not to let them get to me, but of course, on bad days they do. I mean, here's the thing: everyone makes mistakes. A
Yeah.
lot of people that are feeling very miserable and down, they tend to point fingers at other people, saying, "Well, you said this, or you told me to do that." No. I mean, it's your own responsibility, right? It's your own money. You got to take responsibility for what you did. But I try to be nice. I try to ignore, but there are certain people that will get under your skin and just
Yeah.
keep going and going and going, right? I'm sure you face this too. I mean, everyone does. If
Of course.
you're a public figure, people will attack you no matter what, right? But sometimes they calm down and they learn. I hopefully that's the case. People that are really hating and trolling, they're at least still in this space. So
Yeah.
hopefully over time they will learn from the mistakes and move forward. I think that's still preferable over people that they rage quit and just leave, and
Yeah.
they'll say, I'm never coming back.
Mm.
Right. So at least I think that's a better thing. But it is what it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel the same. Because I mean, before I've been the guy pushing this crazy internet that was clearly only for crooks and porn and stuff like that, and no honest person would ever need to use the internet. And same with the mobile phones. I mean, that's only for yuppie stock traders and things like that. And it's giving us all brain cancer. And I'm the guy who's going to give the whole world brain cancer. That's who I am, and also kill all the insects and all the birds, and kill children. Basically, that's who I am for pushing the mobile phone. And then later, everyone forgot about that, and they were all remembering that they were positive all along. Well, actually, they were not, and it's going to be the same thing with this industry. Now we're kind of, even people, when we're infighting here in this industry, we're still one industry, and we are all considered scammers by the public in general. They feel that we're all these Bitcoin scammers doing something fraudulent, or at least facilitating for the crooks by building Bitcoin technology that criminals can use, and that makes us all bad. So now we're at least scammers together then, and I think that's a good perspective to have when someone criticizes something we said or did wrong and so on, because of course we do try to do anything. You do mistakes. No one has ever achieved anything without it's more the contrary. It's that when when something actually works out, that is the big surprise. So I agree with you. I think that's a great perspective. I end my videos always with saying thank you, tack. Tack means thank you in Swedish, and then hej då. Hej då is like bye bye. So we have a request, since we're all George, if you could say thank you, tack, and hej då. That's the thank you and bye bye in Swedish.
I'll try. I'm horrible at pronunciations.
So
tack. Thank you, tack.
And hej då.
And hej då.
Thank you. It was wonderful to have you on the show. And let's speak soon again.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was a great talk.